Ali and welcome to Kapowski Reads. And this week I am just doing a little reading vlog. It is going to be pretty chilled. I am sick. I'm not well. I currently have pneumonia, which is great fun. So I am not planning to do anything overly exciting this week. I've got some doctor's appointments. That's about it. So I am just going to do some reading and relaxation. I don't know about you, but relaxation is something I really struggle with. So I thought I would set myself the goal of having just a really chilled week of reading, and that is exactly what I hope that this vlog is going to be. I am not 100% sure what I plan on reading. My sensible brain is saying to make my way through my TBR, but the other part of my brain is just hoping for chaos. So we shall see what happens. The first book I'm planning to read is called Brutes by Dizzy Tate. Nope, that's not the author's name. Diz Tate? I have forgotten the author's name. I sincerely apologise. The book is downstairs. I will pop a graphic up to show the author's actual name. This is a sort of coming of age story about a group of friends. They are 13 and they are all mildly obsessed, shall we say, with a local girl, the daughter of a local preacher, and she goes missing. And it kind of seems like maybe these girls know a little bit more than they're saying. So I'm really looking forward to this. This book has been likened a little bit to The Virgin Suicides, which is one of my favourite books. I read that far too young, but I don't care because I've read it since and I still love it. So I'm expecting from that comparison for this to be pretty dark, pretty unpleasant at times, but ultimately like really thought-provoking. So I'm excited. And I got this from the library, so it's nothing to do with my TBR. I'll report back and let you know how I get on with this one. So I hope it's gonna be good. I hope I'm gonna have a good week. Well, this week is going very well book-wise so far. I have finished Brutes and I loved this book. Did I love it or did I just really like it? I'm not sure, but I at least really liked it. This was a 5-star prediction. I had a whole bunch of like 5-star predictions that I really wanted to read for my vlog last week, and I got really lucky and the first book ended up being 5 stars. So the vlog ended there, but this one was also on that list, so that's why I wanted to start this week with this one, because I was so excited to read it. This is a really odd book to review, because when I'm gonna tell you what I thought about it, because of course that's the whole point of the video, but it's gonna seem like I didn't like it. So I just need to say straight away, I really liked it. The characters were unlikable. The setting was deeply unpleasant. It was set in Florida, but during like a heat wave. It was very sweaty, very sticky, lots of red ants everywhere. And the writing style was disorienting, but I had such a good time with this book regardless of all of that. It was so compelling. I just really wanted to know what happened to the missing girl, what happened to Sammy. I just kept reading because I needed to know what was going to happen, and I really wanted to know, was everything going to piece together at the end, because it felt very disjointed, and I wondered, was it like I'm just being thrown jigsaw pieces and I need to put them together? I wanted to know, so on I kept reading. The pacing didn't really work for me because it jumped around quite a bit. I wasn't overly certain all of the time where I was. I wasn't 100% sure when this book even took place. There were some flash forwards to sort of show what each of the characters were up to now, I think now, or at least in the future. I don't know when in the future, it didn't say. It gave some hints here and there of, you know, somebody would be married, somebody would have a 6-year-old child. I don't know, I don't even know if the flash forwards were during the same time period. I did wonder at first if they were all at the same event, but very quickly it was made clear that they weren't. While I didn't like any of the characters, I really enjoyed reading their story. I really enjoyed their friendship. Their friendship was very obsessive, very, very obsessive, and you wanted to be in good grace with the group, otherwise you were just left alone to fend for yourself. The friends were cruel to each other, they were cruel to their parents, they were just nasty, horrible children, and I loved reading about them. I would have hated to spend any time with them, but to read their story, loved it. I really loved how close they all were and their shared infatuation and obsession with Sammy and with Mia, who was Sammy's best friend. They were just pulling each other into that obsession rather than sort of going, perhaps this is not a healthy outlook. No, they were dragging each other down, and I really enjoyed reading about it. They were so, so close, and then just one event pulled them apart, and I knew that was going to happen because of the blurb. The blurb told me that, you know, things were never going to be the same again, but I didn't enjoy that event. A lot of it was left to interpretation, but I feel it was pretty obvious what happened, and that I didn't like that. No, I would have rather it was something different, but that's just my personal tastes. I feel like this book would have been a 5-star for me if it was a short story, or if it was maybe 50 to 100 pages longer. I either needed a more condensed version, or I needed more development, not just character development. I was okay with the way the characters were. I needed a bit more plot development to kind of make everything feel a little bit smoother. This was dark. It was a dark read. It was unpleasant at times, but it was raw, it was vulnerable, it was angsty, and I really, really enjoyed it. I wonder if this is a kind of book that you get a little bit more out of every time you read it. I won't have time to reread it. I know it's only 220 pages, but I need to return it to the library pretty soon. So I think that this is a book that I'm going to read again another time. I really enjoyed it though. I gave it 4 stars. I think that's like a 3.5 rounded up. It wasn't a 5-star, but it was still a great time. I know what I'm going to read next. I'm going to read Her Radiant Curse by Elizabeth Lim. This is a prequel to the Six Crimson Cranes series, which I loved, loved. This is the story of a young girl who has been cursed. She has like a serpent face, and she wants to protect her sister from a very unpleasant man who she might end up having to marry. It's going to be a story of sisterly love, and I feel perhaps some obligation, and I just know the world building is going to be amazing because the other 2 books I read in this world were fantastic, and I read them wanting to know a little bit more about the character that is in this book. So I'm very much looking forward to it. I also have some gadgets that I'm looking forward to because this book comes out at the end of August, and I have been very lucky in that I have an ARC from NetGalley, but I still have my pre-order anyway. So I'm reading it on my Kindle, and I have these things, which I realise showing you these mean nothing. This is like an automatic page turner that you clip onto your Kindle, and then a little button so that I can turn the pages off my Kindle without having to touch my Kindle. I have a little stand that I can put it in, and I can lie all comfortable in my bed and just sort of be like, click, click to turn the page. I'm so excited. This is such a frivolous purchase, but I wasn't feeling well and it made me feel better. I will return back when I have made progress in Her Radiant Curse. I am freezing today. I have my giant cozy cardigan, a scarf. I'm cold. But that's nothing to do with book. I am soft DNFing a book. I might go back to it purely because I pre-ordered it as part of another order, and I can't cancel the order because I've received some of the things I ordered at the time, and there are other things I really don't want to cancel. So I will be receiving a copy of this book at the end of the month. And that book is Her Radiant Curse by Elizabeth Lim. This breaks my heart to say that I didn't enjoy it. I read 100 pages and I felt myself being quite bored by it. This book is technically a prequel to the Six Crimson Cranes duology, but it's not part of the series. It does feature a character from the duology. Like I say, I was 100 pages in and so far nothing new had happened. Everything that had happened so far in this book I already knew from reading Six Crimson Cranes and The Dragon's Promise. So I just sort of felt a bit like, why am I getting a huge recap on a book that I've read the source material? Why the big recap? And that was a quarter of the book. So it was very slow and I just found myself going, I'm not enjoying this. I'm not. I was just waiting for excitement to begin. I probably will go back to this book later because I will own it, but I don't see myself going back anytime relatively soon. I've got a whole bunch of books that I really want to read before going back to a book that I had been underwhelmed by. I was off to a good start and now I'm off to a not so good, well, not quite middle. There's loads of the week left. I can get some excellent reads in over the next few days. I really need to go and return my library books, so maybe I will find my next read there. Although my sensible brain is saying that I should pick something from my TBR or from my own shelf. But my heart is saying maybe have a look in the library, see what they have. So I probably will be listening to my heart because why would I not? I don't know what I'm going to read next, but I hope that I like it enough to continue reading it. I will let you know in the next little vlog section. I did not pick up a new book at the library and I kind of feel like I deserve some sort of award for actually deciding to read a book I already own instead of getting a new one. Who would have thought it was possible? There were a lot of books I wanted to pick up at the library, but my common sense brain said that we've got food at home. We've got books at home, read the books at home. So I decided to pick up The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty. I fell in love with the cover of this book, and not only does it have the most gorgeous cover, the US cover I believe is on the end pages and that's the US cover I think, but the UK cover, swoon, swoon indeed, it's gorgeous. And there's a map on the inside, which I'm a sucker for a map, especially in a book like this which involves traversing the seas. I need to know, I need to sort of get a grasp of the distance involved, and having a map really helped me with that. So this book is about an ex-pirate queen, feared and respected by all who knew her, Amina Al-Sirafi, and she had retired. She'd retired from her old life as being the pirate queen and just wanted a quiet life raising her daughter, and the world decided otherwise. They decided that she was going to need to come out of retirement for one last mission. And the last mission kind of seemed a little bit too good to be true, a little bit too good to pass up. And she ends up getting the gang back together. I love a good getting the gang back together story, so I was really excited about reading this. And I had seen it talked about on a few booktube channels, which is the reason that I learned about this book. And let me just say, I absolutely loved it. I loved this book. 5 stars, very, very easy 5 stars, shiny stars, shiny like the book. Loved it. I loved the characters. This is a historical fantasy book. So while it is set in ye past, the characters often had a bit of dialogue that felt far more modern than had this book just been historical. As it was fantasy, I'm okay with that. I don't need period accurate dialogue nope, I'm good, I'm fine, because it's fantasy. You can change things when it's fantasy. So the characters, so lovable, so just, they felt real. There was a lot of sort of morally grey moments where characters were to be feared, but they didn't, you know, harm people just for fun. They were ultimately, they were good people, and they were fond of each other, and they were family, and I loved that. I found myself genuinely caring about these characters. I got worried when there was any form of peril because I really cared about them. And I loved their witty banter, and they spoke to each other with that sort of like fake hatred that you would expect of like siblings or colleagues who'd been together through thick and thin for years. I really enjoyed the way they interacted with each other, and I loved the way they treated the estranged husband who showed back on the scene. Loved the treatment that he got. It was funny. I found myself laughing quite a lot during this book, and I hadn't expected that. This was exciting. It was I wasn't sure what to expect from this book, because retired pirate, I was like, is it going to be sort of swashbuckly? Because I wasn't in the mood for like a Treasure Island kind of book, but it wasn't. It was, yes, there was a boat, and yes, there were some sea traversing going on, but it was so much more than that. It was an adventure, and it was exciting. The book was extremely fast paced. I didn't realise how quickly I was reading the book until I realised when I put my bookmark in, I didn't have a lot of the book left. I sped through it. I didn't mean to, but I did, because I felt compelled. I wanted to know what was going to happen next. This also had is it my favourite trope? Maybe it's my favourite trope, I don't know. It had a quest, and I love a quest. Love it. And this book had it. And that's what I didn't know I was going to get a quest, and I did. Because we had a mission. We knew the mission, but the mission wasn't necessarily a quest. But then suddenly, boom, quest, and I was hooked. I really love the fantasy elements. There were some terms I wasn't familiar with, but I have Google, so I just looked them up, and it didn't take me any time to do that. And I didn't find myself getting pulled out of the story to do that. I just really enjoyed having the fantasy elements. It was so exciting. There was a moment on an island appeared, and I just about lost my mind with excitement. I absolutely loved it. This is the start of a series, and I didn't know it was the start of a series. And the other two books, they don't even have titles on Goodreads, let alone release dates. So I have now fallen in love with another series that I can't go anywhere with. And I fear I have done the same thing that I did with Once Upon a Broken Heart, where I found a series, I fell in love, and then I realised it was a spin-off of another series that I hadn't read. So with Once Upon a Broken Heart, it was a spin-off of Caraval, hadn't read it, went and read it, loved it, went back and read Once Upon a Broken Heart again, loved it even more. This book is set in the same world as the, I want to say, Davabad trilogy. City of Brass is, I have the ebook of that, I just haven't read it. So I think that there may be some sort of subtle nods to that trilogy in this book, and they went completely over my head because I've not read it. So I wonder if perhaps I want to go and read that trilogy and then reread this while I slowly wait for the rest of this trilogy to exist. I thoroughly love this book. It was exciting, it was tense, it was just lovable, and it had all these really cool fantasy elements in it that I just found to feel so fresh and exciting to me. 5 out of 5, loved it, loved it. I am going to stick with being virtuous and reading books from my own TBR. So the next book I'm planning to read is The Girls of Little Hope by Sam Beck-Bissinger and Dale Halverton. I have no idea what this book is about other than 3 girls go missing, and I know there's some sort of horror element in it, but I don't really know too much. So I'm quite excited to go and have something different. I was going to pick up a different book next, but that book was fantasy, and I kind of want to just fully digest this fantasy story before I read another one. So I'm thinking little bit of YA horror to just mix it up a bit. And I also really want to read that book. So I'll report back after I've read that one. I have now finished reading Girls of Little Hope by two authors. It is by Sam Bexbasinger and Dale Halverson, and this was a relatively new release, so I haven't had a chance to speak to any friends about this one yet, so I'm speaking to you. This book is about a very small town, which they keep referring to it as like a teeny little town, quiet village, but when they describe the population of the town as being under 9,000, I'm a bit like, well, my hometown is that. And my hometown didn't feel overly like a tiny town where everybody knew each other's business. Like, we knew some people's business, but you know, there were a whole bunch of people that I didn't know. So that felt strange. Anyway, it is about a small town called Little Hope, and three 15-year-olds go missing. They go off seeking adventure and just something interesting in their tiny little town. There is a cave that they go off to try and find, and only two of them come back, and they come back a little bit different. So this book is kind of about what happened in that cave and also what happened to the one girl who didn't come back. I enjoyed this book. It was told through multiple POV, which I felt worked really well. It was told through the points of view of both of the girls that did come back, the missing girl's mother, and the missing girl's diary entries. So I liked getting the backstory through the diary entries. I thought that was really clever. The book itself was split into 6 parts. The first 2 parts took up the first half of the book, and they were my least favourite parts. They were I found it quite slow, and they were quite dull. And I say that sounds really harsh, but what I mean is that from parts 3 onwards, the book got really exciting. So by comparison, parts 1 and 2, just they weren't exciting. So I'm really glad I stuck with it, because I did wonder, I mean, if the rest of the book was going to be that slow pace, that just sort of nobody listening to each other, and I didn't know if I was going to continue. But from part 3 onwards, we got some horror elements, we got some spooky goings on, and no longer was I feeling underwhelmed. I was feeling whelmed. I'm in Europe, I'm allowed to feel whelmed. I didn't overly like any of the characters at all. I don't feel like I got to know them at all. I got to know them sort of on the surface, but they felt to me, the girls especially, to be very much just caricatures of 90s teen heroines from other media that I've enjoyed. And I would have liked them to have just a bit more of a sort of rounded character. I would have liked to have gotten to know them a bit more, so that I could really care about them as characters and really care about their friendship, or at least understand why the power of friendship was at play here, because I didn't see there to be that great a friendship in this book. Definitely not one that I could see lasting past school, when they moved on to sort of have their own lives. There was an enemy in this book, a big bad, and I liked not knowing, I was going to say who, but maybe who or what the enemy was. I liked being able to try and work that out myself. I did like the big reveal when it came. I really love the sort of 90s setting. I am a huge fan of anything set in the 90s. I get nostalgic, I get misty-eyed about pogs and not having Wi-Fi. Nope, I love Wi-Fi. I don't want to go back to not having Wi-Fi. But it's kind of nice reading a book where, you know, things couldn't be solved entirely by just Googling something on your phone because you don't have a phone. This was a fun read. I really enjoyed it. I think it was a really good way to sort of end my week of reading. I've had a really pretty relaxed week of reading. I have done not a great deal of anything taxing, a few doctor's appointments, a few errands, but ultimately I have done nothing this week other than read and watch over 100 episodes of Come Dine With Me. That's a lot. If you've read any of these books, let me know in the comments how you got on with them, or if you want to read any of them, let me know. Thank you so much for watching.